And then we have the homeownership assistance program that helps with, closing costs and down payment. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of them. Because of time, I don't want to take too much time. But these are the things we do at this stage too that explore to save you some cost. Now we have pre-approval in hand. You've worked with Miss Nike. We got your credit to a good place. We've looked at your debt to income ratio. We see then, she issues you that game changer, that thing, that paper that says go ahead and look for a home, and we have a lender that will back you to this certain amount. I always caution people, if you're pre-approved for 400,000, let's say, you don't have to spend it all. You don't have to buy a home that would take you that 400,000. As a matter of fact, I would say go under it a little by like 20K just to give you that buffer, to help you in terms of when you start to do your calculations, closing costs, and all of those things. It then starts to look a little better. But again, it's a decision that will all, sit together and guide you through. So we're at the house hunting and offer strategy stage. When you have your pre-approval, sellers will take you more seriously, builders will take you more seriously. You know you're ready, they know you're ready. We're having serious conversations around here. This is where negotiation is actually money, So what are some of the strategies we can employ at this point? Again, affordability means different things to different people. Comfort means different things to different people. But some things are universal. Homes that have been on the market for longer are more likely to be cheaper than the ones that are just coming on the market. Now, as a realtor who also represents sellers, what we typically do is make sure that that home is priced to be competitive in the market. So we'll do the comps. But still, when a home has been listed for 60, 90 plus days, sellers are a lot more amenable to negotiation. They're likely to be more flexible when you put an offer in. So if you find a home that matches that and marks all that you need in terms of your goals for that home, those are always the better ones to go for. And there are ways you can also structure that offer. So say a home is priced for 300,000, they reduce the cost, the price of the home a few times, and the seller is not very happy about reducing the price a bit more. There are some other ways to strategize. You can say, okay, if I give you your asking price, you cover the closing cost. Now, closing cost is about 3% of the asking price of the home. And because they know I have an offer in hand, I have a serious buyer who's ready to go to the closing table with me, who's pre-approved, so I know that more often than not, that loan will go through. They can be more amenable to that. Okay, I will pay that closing cost just so that I can sell this home. That can save you, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, depending on the cost of the home, right? So these are some of the ways that we negotiate. We can also say, some concessions could also be, maybe you've been able to get a discount. We've got the seller to reduce the cost by, some thousands of dollars. And you don't have enough cash to go to the closing table. You can actually say, cover the closing cost, and we'll add it to the cost of the home. That way, the seller pays the closing cost at the table. You don't need to have that cash at the time. They add it on top of the cost of the home for you. And at the end of the day, maybe it adds another $60, $100 to your monthly payment. That's another way to structure it. So again, affordability means different things to different people. So you not having that cash on hand to pay for closing doesn't mean you can't buy that home. There are ways we can structure it. There are ways we can
That's actually how I bought my first home. When I bought my first home in 1996, that home was $50,000 at the time. And at that time, my husband was earning $5 an hour, working multiple jobs, and we couldn't afford the closing costs. So what we did was to add $2,000 on top of the home. That home was $50,000 at the time. And today, that home, we still have that home rented out. That home is worth about $350,000 now.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's a lot. So that's a testimony there about that strategy really working. So if again, that's something we can consider. If let me do like a quick analysis here. So if you get a $10,000 reduction, in your home price of a $300,000 home, that could save you about $60 a month, right? And if you actually pay that amount and the seller, goes ahead and pays for that closing cost, that's $10,000 in your pocket that you're saving that you can put to anything else. You can put that in your escrow. You can then go ahead, a lot of times when you close on the home, you're not paying mortgage until 2 months after, like, right? That first month, you can pay that towards your principal. It brings it down. It means that, as they calculate the interest, your principal is already lower and you're not paying as much again. So there are different ways to skin a cat in this case. Just to work, talk to your lender, talk to your realtor. Let's sit together and craft the best strategy for you or what works for you. Now, there's also the rate buy downs. I'm also going to turn it over to Miss Nike here since she's the numbers person, where we get to the loan. So we have an offer in place, right? We have a contract, we've gone under contract. There are a few things that happen at this point, right? This is when we go into underwriting. This is when the lender starts to look at more of the papers, and then we're talking about what's the interest rate that is coming in and all that. There's rate buy downs, and sometimes sellers, you can negotiate for the seller to actually buy down your rate. What does that mean, Ms. Nike, when we do a rate buy down? For example, like a 2-1 buy down, different scenarios around it.
So when you go under contract, okay, keep in mind that whatever rate you see on your pre-approval letter is not your final rate. That's the rate on that day your pre-approval was issued. Also keep in mind that rate changes on a daily basis. Sometimes rate could change 3-4 times in a day. So just make sure before you go under contract, check with your loan officer or your loan broker and say, hey, I found a property that I'm interested in that I really love. Can you run the numbers based on today's rate? And they will run the numbers and let you know what your monthly payment is going to look like. Okay. So once you go under contract, then the next thing is to go into underwriting. The lender would review all the documents that you've provided to us. And if everything looks great, then they'll issue a conditional loan approval. Please do not go under contract without a pre-approval letter, a pre-approval from somebody that is known and trusted. A lot of people go online because they think that it's cheaper online. It's never cheaper online. You always want to use someone that's local. So once you get the conditional loan approval, the lender is going to ask for more things. Maybe, can you explain why this happened? Can you provide additional documentation? So they'll ask you all of those questions. Then we'll go back and get everything done, order your appraiser, order insurance for the property. And the only thing that you are going to pay for other than your credit report is going to be your appraiser once your loan is approved. For me, I don't order your appraiser until the underwriter has actually reviewed your application and everything is good. That's when we order appraiser. Because the moment you pay for that appraiser, you are not going to get your money back. Okay. So let's say the seller now is giving you money towards closing, right? So now, depending on the type of loan that you're getting, there's a limit to the amount the seller can actually contribute towards closing. So you have an option. You can do a buy down. We have 2 types of buy down. There's a temporary buy down, and then there's a permanent buy down. So the permanent buy down is whatever you get today, that's what your rate is for the life of that loan until you sell the property or until you refinance. The temporary buy down means your payment is going to change every year. So let's say you do the 3-2-1 buy down, and let's say today's rate is 3%. So the first year, your rate is going to be reduced by 3 points. So then your payment, is going to be based on 3% interest rate. Then the next year, your payment is going to be based on 4% interest rate. Then the following year, your payment is going to be based on 5%. And then you will now eventually go back to your 6% interest rate. So some people prefer to go that route, but whatever it is, again, going back to affordability, you want to make sure you understand the process, and you want to make sure that it is affordable, that you can afford the payment. Now, even if you decide you want to do the temporary rate buy down, the lender is actually going to approve your loan based on the current rate, not based on the lower rate, based on the current rate. So they will make sure that you do qualify with that 6% interest rate. So, and then if you have the seller contribution as well, you can use that towards reducing your closing costs. So there are so many ways to get these things done. It just depends on what you want. And again, we'll give you the options to choose and to see what's better for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Nikki. So, that's buying rates. There's another thing that happens on this, and I'm trying to be mindful of time. I think we have about 20 minutes left. There's another thing that happens during this period. So when we go under contract, we have what we call the option period. This is the time when we go in and do inspection of the home. Especially if it's a resale home, if it's a pre-loved home, like they say, and it's not a new build. You do an inspection at this time, and the inspection can bring up a few things. If there are things you feel, you can live with, these are ways to negotiate. These are some of the things you can use to negotiate with the seller and say, you're going to give me credit for this because this was found in the home, that was found in the home. If it's easier or cheaper for you to have them do those repairs, they can go ahead and do those repairs. It then doesn't touch, the actual cost of the home. But if you feel like maybe you're a handy person, maybe you do a lot of DIY, I feel like I can fix this myself, you can get the seller to them. You can then negotiate for the seller to give you some credit back for that. Speaking of that, I'm going to take us back, a step before we actually go under contract also. That's also some time where we can do strategic negotiations. So you can walk into a resale home, and say, I like this home, but this is dated. Maybe the fixtures are dated. There's a crack in the driveway. A few things here and there that the seller has not fixed. We can use those to negotiate and say, because I'm going to be doing all of these repairs when I get into my home, I need you to give me another $10,000, $5,000, depending on what it is. These are some of the ways that you can negotiate. And like I said, for a lot of people, they're easy DIY things that you can go to Home Depot and fix. But trust me, the seller at that point wants to sell the home. So they're going to concede a lot of times, of course, within reason. They're not going to be, unreasonable in their concession too, but it does buy us 1,000 here, 2,000 there, that can also still go to, setting up that home. So now we're under contract, like I said, we're looking at rate buy downs, we're looking at seller concessions. We can also negotiate, so when Ms. Nikki here, your mortgage broker prepares the estimated closing cost, there's a part of it that you cannot touch. And then there's a part that they say you can negotiate, you can go and shop for and find if there are, cheaper options out there. But Ms. Nikki is good about finding you the best deals, even with those things, so that you most of the time don't need to. I mean, for your own, peace of mind, you can still go and check. But a lot of times there are things like that. Then there's insurance bit of it. So she mentioned it before, this is when you're required to get an insurance, a homeowner's insurance. That's also something you shop for. So you check with different insurance brokers to see who has the best, rates for you. These are ways that you can save money on that home. You don't want your mortgage company getting insurance for you. That's the one you don't want to do. You want to find the insurance yourself, because trust me, you will save money there. Okay, so now we've gone through all of that. We're at the closing table. We've talked about different ways that we can save money at the closing table too. Please feel free. We do have about 15 minutes left. If you have any questions at this point, put them in the chat so we can take care of those questions for you. So here we're talking about, we've different strategies to save money. Now we're at the closing table. We have closed. You have a key in hand. It doesn't end there. You've moved into your home. there are still ways to save money. It doesn't end there. The first thing is the homestead exemption. You'll be surprised at how many people do not know that in Texas, you can actually file for homestead exemption. So as long as it's your primary home, that's your primary residence, you can only claim it on one residence, one home. But you get about 100,000, I think, is the current. I know they're talking about, and I need to check that, reviewing that policy or law, but right now it's 100,000 that you can take away from the value of your home before that home is taxed. So if your home is appraised, and the appraisal is done by the county, so you really don't have a say in that. You can question it, you can challenge it, but whatever they call that appraised and agreed appraised value of the home, for the sake of easy calculation, let's say it's 200,000. Now you qualify to take off 100,000 off that home. If you file for it, it's not automatic. You have to file for it. Then you get 100,000, and that's what your property tax will be based off of. That saves you money. That saves a lot of people money. And you want to get in as quickly as possible. The moment you qualify for it, you want to get it in. The other thing that can also save you money after closing is something Ms. Nikki had referred to earlier, refinancing. So where right now the climate is, a little topsy-turvy, where, people are looking at interest rate dropping, people are trying to hold out, it's taking a bit too long. If you're at about 6% right now, I think we have a higher fives, depending on, where you qualify based on your credit and some of the other things we discussed. Maybe in 2 years, mortgage is now 3.5%. And you already got your mortgage at about 5%, 5.5, 6%. We're talking about a 2-point drop, that's huge, huge savings right there. You want to refinance that loan and get it at a cheaper rate. Yes, it will cost you your closing cost again, and that's the math we'll do. Closing cost versus how much you save in the lifetime of the loan. Does it make sense? Can you afford that closing cost again? Affordability means different things to different people.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes, I saw it. I just wanted to thank you. Yes, so that's those are some of the ways you can still save. Let me pull up that question. Those are some of the ways you can still save while even after you have closed on your home. So this question says, if I'm buying first home in Texas, is it considered first home, and do I qualify for the homestead even though I have a home in another state?
Okay, that's if you are living in that home primarily. So let's say you currently live in, I don't know, maybe Maryland, and now work is moving you to Texas. And now you are not going to live in that house in Maryland anymore. You are going to live in the property that you are buying here in Texas. Yes, that's going to be your primary home. And then that's also going to be your homestead. Homestead means you have to live there. So you cannot maybe buy a home in Texas and still live in Maryland. No, you won't be able to get that opportunity to use it as homestead. You just have to live there. Also, as far as down payment is concerned, if you currently have a home, let's say in Maryland, you are coming to Houston, and let's say you want to use an FHA program, then you can still buy a home with FHA financing with 3.5%. If you are using conventional loan, your down payment is going to be 5%. If you are moving from another state to this state and you are going to be working here, or let's say you work remote, then that's considered your primary home. Again, like your homestead.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers the question for you. Again, we have about 10 minutes to go. If you have any question, now will be the time to put them in the chat. Talking about homestead exemption, I talked about you qualify for 100,000 in Texas. What I didn't say is that there are also some demographics that have additional qualifications or savings on homestead. So if you're a senior, there's an additional exemption for you. If you're a disabled homeowner, if you're a disabled veteran, and you're already in the system and you claim all the disability benefits, then you also qualify for additional exemption on your home. But like she said, you can only claim on one primary residence. You can't spread it over 2 or 3. It's just one time claim. All right. So let's add this up conservatively. Like, how much are we talking about in terms of savings? So we've talked about credit optimization, and we've talked about what that means. So about 1%, savings in your interest rate just because you improved your credit by 20 to 40 points, that's saving you. Think about it, 1% of your loan over 30 years, what you're paying, what you're saving. That's another, I would say conservatively 10,000, 15,000, that you're saving there. PMI, we've talked about if you can drop, 20% in terms of conventional loan, or you actually walk into that home like Miss Nike's scenario. I've seen people do it. Buy a home that still needs a bit tender loving care, that you can do a bit more to upgrade. Then you buy it for cheap, right? Because the seller recognizes that this is not a move-in ready home. There's still a bit of work to be done there. If you have time, if you still have 6 months, 9 months, on your lease, you can still stay in your apartment. You don't want to be paying rent, I know, but we'll do the math, right? And you buy it for cheap and you fix that home. By the time you are walking into it, you do an appraisal, the value of that home has increased. So your equity has increased, right? You get to that 20% point a little faster and you get rid of that mortgage insurance a little faster. That's another 10,000, that you're saving right there. Let me take the question before I go back to my summary. I've seen a couple questions come in. Okay. So I'll take this one first from FJ. It says, if I lived in another state when I purchased my home in Texas, can I claim homestead on the property after the fact, couple of years after purchase?
As long as you live there, if you primarily live there, that's the requirement. You have to live in that property. I've seen some people, they'll buy a home in, let's say their first home is in Harris County. They will claim homestead exemption in Harris, and then they will go to Fort Bend, buy another home, claim homestead exemption in Fort Bend. That is like cheating the system, and you don't want to get yourself involved in stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, how much money are you saving to maybe go to jail for something that's not even worth it? So just make sure that when you move out of that home to a different property, let's say you are going to rent out that home. When you are renting out the home, the one that you moved out of, the tenant is the person that's going to be paying the taxes, not you. So you're really not the one paying those taxes. So just make sure you do the right thing at all times. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so there's a follow-up question.
So that one.
Yeah, military deployment for a year. Can I buy the house and stay? As long as you live there. So when you buy the house, you're required to move in within, I believe it's within 30 days or 60 days. I think within 30 days, you are required to move into the property. So if you live in a house for 1 year and then after a year, you decide you want to move to another property or you want to move out of state, yeah, you can do whatever you want as long as you primarily reside in the property. It's not that you buy the home, you're not going to live there, it's going to be a rental property, but you buy the property because you don't want to do a huge down payment and say you're going to live there and you don't live there. Because guess what? Sometimes these lenders, I've seen it happen. They have some, they have this database that they check periodically to check if you actually occupy or not. In my 23 years of experience, I only had it happen one time. And thankfully, it was a different realtor that brought that deal to me. And so at that time, when the lender found out that this borrower purchased the property as his primary, he didn't live there, they wanted that loan paid off. They accelerated the loan immediately. He had to pay that house. And so what happened at the time, rates had gotten higher than what it was when he bought the property. So he had to end up, paying a higher interest rate because he had to refinance. He didn't have the money to pay off the loan. So you just want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. We have 5 minutes to go, but I was recapping, the big the big picture summary of savings that we had talked about today. I stopped at the PMI strategy, then we're going to the location and listing age that we talked about. That could save you conservatively another $5,000 to $7,500. Let's talk about down payment assistance and first-time home buyer programs. That could save you another $5,000 to $10,000. Seller concessions, another $5,000 to $10,000 if it's negotiated properly and structured well. Inspection negotiation, like we talked about, could get some money in there. Rate strategy, we've talked about the temporary and the permanent, the 2-1 buy down. Could save you another, $8,000, $10,000 on the long run. And then we're looking at the tax savings when you do your homestead exemption. That's easy. $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in potential strategic savings that we're talking about. So it's really very important about how you go about buying a home. It makes a whole difference between what you will pay versus what the next person would pay when you work with the right team, right? So it's not by luck. It's not by, this person just gets the best, deals. It doesn't happen by happenstance. It is strategic. It's working with the right set of people. It's knowledge, it's making sure that you also are willing to listen. Because I've worked with a few buyers who think they know what they want and, they just wouldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, every decision is yours to make. You own it. It's your home. It's your money and all that. But please be open-minded. If you have questions, you can't have too many questions. You can ask too many questions. Ask all the questions, and the time to ask is before you go under contract. Ask all the questions, ask again and again and again until you're satisfied and you know that, okay, I know what I want to do. He said, can we have your contacts, please? Ms. Nike, please put it again and I will put mine also. Let's do that right now. So while we're talking about that, please reach out. If you're ready, or if you're even thinking about it already, let's have that initial consultation. Starting it right goes a whole long way. It goes a long way in making the best of it. I was hoping this would have come in, so we have a couple minutes to go. I put my IG handle there, my phone number, and my email address. Okay. So ideally, what's the timeline? When do you reach out? Again, if you have the luxury of time, please reach out 6 months, I would say, before you're ready to start. The whole process, typically from when you go under contract or when you find a home to when you close, is about 30 to 45 days. Before then, we need the time to have looked for the home. It's a good time in the market right now for a buyer. You can actually, go around that. So the inventory level is pretty high, but also let's be aware of the fact that we're getting into the peak period where a lot of people move over the summer. So this is when we start shopping. So if you have a home that you already have in mind, you want to get in early and make sure that you get what you want. But at the same time, you don't want to overpay for it. And that's why we're here, to make sure that you get that home in an affordable and comfortable manner. You want to move into your home and able to decorate it like you want and still go on vacation. So you don't want to be house poor after moving in, and that's why we're here. This is what we want to do with you. I hope you have gained some things, and I hope we've given you things to think about that you would want to reach out to us. Let's have that one-on-one consultation. We'll be absolutely, absolutely happy to work with you. Ms. Naked, there's one more question that came in. I know you need to go, so if you want to just wrap it up. Building your house on builder's lot versus buying pre-built, what are the drawbacks? So you're talking about, so there are 3 different things: custom build, or you're going to the builder early and you're picking your lot and you're picking all the specifications, or you're buying an inventory home. They all have their different advantages. So typically, of the 3 of them, the inventory home would probably be the cheapest because it's already built. You can't choose anything. It's an inventory they're carrying that they want to get rid of, so they're more likely to concede on a lot of things. in that situation. Now, when you buy on the builder's lot, the advantage of that is a lot of times the builder would also give you some credit towards, your design. They can give you 20,000 that you can put towards upgrading the home. And so you get to pick the backsplash you want, the cabinet color you want, the tile, the flooring, whatever it is that you want. And they'll give you some money towards it. But beyond that, there may not be a lot of concessions. We know the builders. So as a realtor, I know the different builders and I know how they operate. So if you come to me and we're working together, I will tell you, this builder, this is the best way to get things out of them. They may not give you, especially if you're not working with their lender, they tend not to want to contribute towards the closing cost, but there are other ways we can get that money. We can ask them, throw in the appliances. So what's required standard is the stove, the microwave, and the dishwasher. Everything else is an add-on. So we can say, throw in the fridge, the washer and dryer, the sprinkler system tend to be a bit standard these days, gutters, blinds, all of those things. At the end of the day, the money that they would have spent may be very close to what they could have done with closing cost assistance. Now, if you're doing custom build, it depends on the builder. Some can give you some concessions. They'll help. You can negotiate some things. It may be, maybe they were going to use some type of, I'm thinking, countertops. Maybe you upgrade to quartz. It should have been, what's this other popular one? I can't remember. Or, you want to upgrade to marble, the flooring, you want to go from tile to wood. They can give you some concessions there. So again, it depends on what you want, where you are in time, but there are ways to save money in the different scenarios. Ms. Nikki, welcome back. I thought you had gone. Do you want to add to that? You're muted.
I'm still here. I was just looking at I had my notification that came in for 12 o'clock. So
yes, I know you had stuff. So all right. As I was saying, I think we're a couple minutes over time. Thank you all so much. Ms. Nike's contact details are in the chat. Mine are also in the chat. My name is Ola Ofuya. I'm a realtor in the Houston area, all over the Houston area. So location is no barrier. I will be there. Thank you for joining. We do this on a monthly basis, so look out for the next one that's coming up end of March. I will send out invites if you're still, trying to gather knowledge. It's never too early to get into, understanding how this works, or even too late. Even if you're in the process, why not? Could make you have some more questions that will help you. So please join us on the next one. And you all have a great weekend. Thank you all for joining. Bye.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.